G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the round 15 stock market video. Hope that you're all going well. Now, given the fact we are getting towards the end of the season, lots of us have now locked in 22 premiums. I'm going to start to do things a little bit differently when it comes to the stock market video. Usually we take the break-evens into high account, but now, given the fact that most of the players that we are trading in, we're obviously hoping to keep for the remainder of the season, they do become less relevant. And what does become more relevant is players' current form. So rather than sort players by their break even, I'm now going to sort players by their 3-round average. So that will be the slight difference from now until the end of the season. I think that will be a little bit more relevant and probably help coaches out a little bit more. And the other thing is, this week we've got some big news. It's Tommy Stewart. So I will go through all of the best replacement options for him down there in defence. We'll talk about some absolute premiums. A very high risk versus reward type player. You may see him right in the middle of the screen at the moment, as well as some budget options as well. If you do maybe want to save some coin in your defence and maybe use some money saved elsewhere on another line. So that's it for now, guys. I'll leave the intro there. As I mentioned at the start, hope that you're all going well. Let's start off with the 500k plus defenders. At the top of the list this week, we have my #1 trading target for Tommy Stewart. I present the man with the best 3-round defensive average in the game. Jordan Dawson can score at will in any position, playing down back or up the ground. Has played down back recently and scored well during crucial moments. He's got the kick in Monopoly, although he doesn't always play on from the square, which is a little bit frustrating. His disposal efficiency has been up, and you just know when he gets it that he'll use it well. As a non-owner, he's been a real thorn in my side, and he's also got a nice upcoming fixture. 3rd now for total points down back, and his last 2 months of scoring is awesome. 94, 134, 107, 130, 104, 106, 140 and a 134 last week. So is worth paying up for, and a fantastic Tom Stewart replacement. The next man, Old Man Richie, is a pod on absolute fire. Broken the 1 up, 1 down scoring pattern, and now 10th for total points. 119, 119 and 135 in the last 3 is brilliant, and if he can keep it up, he'll be a lovely pod option. Remember, last year was one of our most consistent defenders. Gus Brayshaw on a lovely run and an interesting pod. 100, 130, 126 and a 106 over the last month, but can also throw in a low run here and there. He's a slight gamble, and there are safer picks, but a decent potential pod. Doc is close to a top 6 lock for me. He's a safe, steady type option, and again, a fantastic Stewart replacement in my opinion. Redmond, one completely outside the box. I hadn't really been tracking his form, but yeah, a little bit of a surprise this one. We got to respect him after his, last 4 weeks. He's gone 113, 99, 144 and a 107. So you can go for it if you're a gambling man, but I just couldn't recommend it. Don't really know enough about the pick. Saad, he's a safe and nice in-form option, possibly an underrated option as well. And now on to possibly the biggest risk versus reward player that we have in the game, and a potential Stewart replacement. It's a really, really interesting one. It is Aaron Hall. We know the story with Aaron Hall. When he's on, he's a very, very bad man. I had him locked into my side pre-season, but as soon as news came through that there were some issues with his hammies, I crossed him straight off the list because durability hasn't been really favourable for Aaron Hall in the past. He came back. What happened again? Pinged that hammy. Ouch. Really, really hurt those blokes that showed a little bit of faith. Again, he's come back for the last 2 weeks. Stewart's gone down, so we're thinking, is it worth having another crack at this great man? Look, rounds 1 and 2, 129, 123, a little bit mediocre from rounds 3 to 5, 70, 97, then a 71. But remember, in round 5, when he did score that 71, I think he was on that at half time. So that was looking like a huge score. Returned in round 13, just before the bye. Pushed out a 94, 19 touches, 16 of those were kicks though. And then last week, we saw him back to his best, a 153, 38 touches, with 30 of those being kicks. So if you select him and he's fit and he's firing, he'll score really, really well. We've seen the pattern, and we know what he did last year when he was actually fit and on the park. Unfortunately though, you are going in with a huge risk. We've already seen 2 issues with his hammies already, so don't be surprised if you select him and within the first 5 minutes of next week's game against the Cats, it goes ping and he's out for the rest of the season. This is the risk that you want to take with Aaron Hall. Do you want to take it? It's completely up to you, but I would highly advise, if you are trading in Hall, make sure that you've got a trade up your sleeve where you can fix this up again, because it's highly likely that he will not play every game from here into the end of the season. He could, and could work out really well, but it's just super, super risky. And Bailey Dale, the safe as houses type selection. He certainly won't win your games. He won't lose your games. He'll just give you a really safe type average. But look, are we looking for safe players at this stage of the season? Probably not. I'd look to go a little bit riskier. Houston has actually been pretty consistent this year, 535,200. You know how I feel about him, and that won't change in a week. Georgie Hewitt, 544,300. Mid-500s, what we haven't seen from Hewitt are those 110 to 120 type scores. He's come back to the pack a little bit, but I suppose similar to Bailey Dale, but with more upside, just a safe type selection. Jack Sinclair, saw him fail for the first time basically all season, apart from a pair of 80s that we saw, 4 or 5 weeks ago. What was the reason for this? It was a red flag that I had tagged a few weeks ago, and that was the fact that he did get tagged. Finally, the opposition team did put some defensive pressure on, and he simply didn't get the easy pill that he's been getting over the last 6 weeks, particularly when he's moved back to defence. Super frustrating for owners, and all we can do from here on is just hope that they give him a little bit of freedom, because with freedom, he's one of the best scorers in the game. But when he's got such close attention getting paid to him, it's almost impossible to score well. So fingers crossed that they just leave him alone. James Sicily was ultra consistent, giving us those lovely 120 plus type scores. But all of a sudden, last couple of weeks, we haven't seen the best of him. Almost at 600k, just under now with a high break even. He'll certainly look to go down in price. Look, don't get me wrong, he's certainly got the ceiling to be able to go 130 plus and almost reach that break even. Again, break evens aren't ultra important at this point. We're more looking at form, but if we do take that 3-round average into consideration, at almost 600k, it seems like there are probably better options or blokes that present a little bit more value, I suppose, than Sicily, but I'm still really confident that he's going to be a top 6 type option from here. Crispy hasn't been in ultra great form. Well, same 3-round average as Sicily. Again, I wouldn't be investing. I'd be looking at someone with a bit of a higher ceiling, a little bit more upside. And Tommy Stewart, well, I've got to have the Muppet symbol there. I've got to have the sell symbol there. Yeah, bad boy, Tommy. On to the defenders, 250 to 500k, and we've got 2 Richmond boys up the top of the list this week. Nick Vlostone, 96, 120, 130 in his last 3, but did score a 68 and a 54 the 2 weeks prior. So if he's hot, he's really hot, but if he's cold, he does get pretty icy. Liam Baker, interesting selection, Mr. Fix-It, and one of the best utilities in the comp, has that handy DPP status that you can swing with an SDK or a Paddy McCartan if you got them on opposite lines. His last 6 since going back to defence read 90, 134, 80, 112, 100, and a 126 last week, playing really well down back. Then thrust into the midfield last week during the match just to offer something different in the middle. Main issue is a potential role change up forward, which is possible, but I don't think it's likely. Lockie Whitfield, wouldn't you know it, as soon as I trade him out, 118, 101, and 103, 3 weeks on the trot. It's frustrating, but now he's looking fit, moving well, seems to be back to his best, and in my opinion, he's the best trading option on this list. Lizard, nice score last week, massive pod. Seagull, I'm not sold after 148. Remember, only the week before, he pooped out a 42. Short the Butcher, down on form in the last month, 85, 102, and a pair of 84s. I'm holding, hoping he goes big against the Eagles, but I certainly wouldn't trade him in. Paddy McCartan and Sam de Koning, perfect cover for the rest of the year. If you can hold one of these guys on your bench, I highly advise to do so if you've got the luxury. And the other 3 blokes were requests for this week. Ridley, Cumming, and May. Look, I've looked into the numbers, but I just can't recommend any of them. Ridley has been okay without being fantastic. Certainly not the Jordan Ridley that we saw open up the 2021 season. Isaac Cumming, I don't think that Himmelberg has been affecting him too much, maybe slightly, but with the 3-round average of 85, almost 500k, I think just above this price tag, there are so many other better options. And Stephen May down the bottom with a 3-round average of 57. That break even says it all, 152, under 400k, which does seem like an absolute bargain. I picked him up pretty cheap last year. I think it was lowish, mid 400s, and was pretty serviceable. But yeah, and look, I suppose we saw some decent form at the start of the year. We know he's a kick-out king, has all the monopoly there, but recently, just a shell of his former self, and I don't know if the off-field issues have got to him, just not a pick that I'd advocate. Onto the defenders, under 250k, and we've got 4 options here this week. 2 of those are on the bubble. My man, Massimo D'Ambrosio, up at the top. I actually brought in before his first game. Always a really dangerous move, but you got to do what you got to do during the buys sometimes, and I was really desperate for a defensive downgrade option. He's given me a couple of low pairs of 50s, a 51 and a 53 in the last couple of weeks. Playing off halfback, has a pretty consistent stat line as well. Round 14, 9 kicks, 6 handballs, couple of marks. And the tackle, round 15, 8 kicks, 6 handballs, 5 marks, and the 1 tackle as well. So I do think that he's done enough to keep his spot over someone like a Cutler type. He's a big part of their future, and the price tag, well, it's as low as you're going to get. So if you are looking for a defensive downgrade option this week, then D'Ambrosio is certainly the bloke that you trade in. Under him is Brody Kemp, a talented player, a former first-round pick that's just been dogged by injuries. Had a 56 in round 9 versus the Giants and got dropped. Recalled last week due to Carlton's defensive crisis. Did step up pretty well though against strong opposition. Finished with the 73 points, had 17 touches, 8 marks and a tackle. Playing taller than his size. With their lack of tall cattle down there, I think they've been forced into playing this bloke at the moment. And look, as a trading target, for me the main issue here is the starting price. If you select him, you're not looking to resell. So at 156,800, I'd probably pass in favour of Massimo. Parnell looks so good in his first couple, but only 18 points last week. Coming up against the D's, I'd probably just let him go through to the keeper. And where he's been fantastic for those that traded him in, well, what was it just before the buys? 3-round average of 66. I think that's probably what he'll give you most weeks, playing a little bit higher up the ground now. Break even of 11, projected score of 62. Absolute hold if you own him, and he should be fantastic cover for the end of the year. Onto the midfielders, 500k plus, and to be honest this week, I'm going to keep it pretty short and simple. I've talked about these players over and over. The majority of these blokes are featured on the stock market each and every week, and I'm going to say it like this. If you see an 8-ball next to one of these selections in the notes, then I advise them as a trade-in option. Now, we've got Oliver Laird, McRae, Miller, Mills, Walsh and Lockie Neal. So a couple of points of interest. Clayton Oliver is coming up against Adelaide this week, and his previous 2 scores against the Crows at the Adelaide Oval have been 200 plus. So make sure that you have him in your captaincy loop somewhere this week. I'm actually chucking the VC on him and putting a little bit of a pod in my ruck line as a potential captain this week, but hoping that Oliver can just pump out a 140 plus. That'd be really nice. Rory Laird is just in fantastic form, gets so much of the pill, tackles well, such a consistent type player, just will not go under 100, and Champion Data love his game. So if you got the cash to bring him in, 641,000, I actually think it'll be money really, really well spent. Jack McRae has found some recent form. We see that break even all the way down to 79, so at 608,000, I think you're getting an absolute bargain if for some reason you don't have him in. Now, Took has been up, down, up, down. It's a bit of a mixed bag, and this is a surprising stat with Took Miller, because looking back to last year, he was super consistent. You could pretty much lock in a 120 type score each week, but his break even is at 152, certainly in the red there, but at around 600k, I still think he's going to be a good selection and top 8 for the rest of the season. Mills has such a massive ceiling. Lately, it's been a little bit up and down as well, but certainly rate him in the top probably 5 mids from here. So if you can grab him, you don't have him, make sure you get him in if you can. Brayshaw, I've taken the 8-ball off him. He's a little bit hot, a little bit cold. Got a heap of the pill last week. Unlike Laird, I don't think Champion Data overly like Brayshaw's game. Did handball a lot, I understand that. Kicking efficiency wasn't terrific, but, oh, geez, I think they're pretty harsh on him, to be honest. But 3-round average of 112 is still okay. Cam Guthrie, so I've stuffed that up, haven't I? So Mills with the 3-round average, Brayshaw, Guthrie, Walsh, Neil. I probably should have had that around the other way. I apologise for that. But Cam Guthrie is just one of those real pod type selections. Do you get him in? Well, if you want to go ultra different. Sam Walsh last week, certainly advocate this bloke. Really bounced back after, wouldn't say a poor performance the week before. I don't think he got scored overly well and had a pretty quiet second half. But last week, just smashed it. And to be honest, if you look at his stat line, clearances, contested, the amount of disposals he got, I thought that was probably a 150 to 160 type game. But if you're a Sam Walsh owner, fantastic. If you don't own him and you're looking to bring in a premium midfielder, I think he's going to be a really, really good in. And Lachie Neale, we've all got him by now. Had a really nice start to last week's game, then faded a little bit. Coming up against the Dogs this week, I don't think they'll put too much pressure on him. I think that they'll be pretty confident just to put their midfield up against the Lions. So does have the potential to score pretty big. Would be a fine VC option if you want to chuck him in your loop. The majority of the blokes we've got on this next list have all been really disappointing lately. Bo, Cripper, Keys, Merritt, Josh Kelly, and Jack Steele I'll talk about in a sec is a little bit of a different case. We'll get to him in a minute, but I wouldn't be investing in any of the other guys that you see here. Boki with a 3-round average of a 101. Cripper just there at 3 figures with 100. Benny Keys actually had a pretty decent game last week. Does have a nice fixture, but I'd much rather go up if you can afford it. And now it's a 100k difference, which is a lot of money, but would highly advise going up to Rory Laird. Merritt, I've owned him for 3 weeks. Was a decent score with a 111 last week against the Eagles, but I don't think we're going to see anything much higher than that unless it's the odd or rare sort of occasion. And Jolly with that 3-round average of 97, if you had to trade him in a month ago around the buys, you'll just be super disappointed because his form has taken a huge dip. Now, the man down the bottom, Jack Steele, 553,900. I traded him in, owned him for 2 weeks, and unfortunately got injured and then was a must trade out. So that was super frustrating for me at the time, but I think he could be a really sneaky trade in. Now, you could bring him in this week. I think that's okay because he did pass one of the tests that I was looking for him to pass anyway last week, and that was the tackle count. So he did lay 6 tackles. I was a little bit worried with that shoulder. Will he be going in, laying those tackles, really getting that contested pill? And he certainly didn't disappoint. So the fact that he managed to get 10 after only 4 and 3 in rounds 8 and 9, which was the last 2 matches that he played, that was a really, really good sign for me. Almost 30 touches, 10 kicks, 19 handballs. So not the best kick to handball ratio, but that's something that we typically associate with Jack Steele anyway. So almost 30 touches, 10 tackles. I think he's fine to bring in, or else you can still afford just to wait that 1 more week, see how it goes against Carlton this week, and then bring in round 17 when he comes up against Freo, because those 2 70s, the 75 and the 74, will be out of his system, and he is certainly one of the best scorers in the game when he's fit and firing. And the only other discussion point I think we've got here is, do we actually trade out these type of players? You know, if you own a Paddy Cripps, a Zeret, even a Josh Kelly, do we actually keep on to these blokes or actively look to trade them out? Well, I think that comes down to one thing, and that's how many trades you got in the bank. So if you've got 7 or more, say, and you've got a completed side, absolutely do it. I think that would be fine. But if you're running low on trades, maybe 5 or below, I'd be extremely careful. If you've got, say, 4 or 5 at this stage, I'd be waiting at least a couple of weeks, just making sure there's no injury carnage, and then possibly looking to make a move there. But yeah, it's all team dependent. I'm in a situation where I can't afford that luxury at the moment, but say come round 18, I've still got 5, even 4 in the bank, may look to do it then. On to the midfielders, 250 to 500k, and the man up the top, Dylan Shiel, has been in really good recent form. Last 3 weeks, 139, 103, and a 101. Only issue with this pick is the fact that he's only gone over 3 figures 5 times this year, and 4 out of those 5, he's just crawled to the ton. So in rounds 1 and 3, 101, then 100, then it was over 2 months until he got his next ton. That was 139, which is his only really big score of the year. And apart from that was a 103 and a 101. So not really a player with a huge ceiling. He does have a really low floor, you know, 68, 37, 67 thrown in there. So not the type of player that I'd advocate I'll just be paying up a little bit more for a bloke that we've already seen on the previous slide if you can. Dacos, I would hold him if you do have him, unless you're looking to make an absolute upgrade to a real premium such as a Dawson, for example, or one of these premium midfielders. I would hold, but again, if you need to upgrade, I suppose you can do it, but in the form that he's in currently, 3-round average of 106, I don't really see any reason why you would want to move him on. Now, Track, man, this is a frustrating one. He has not gone above the ton in the last month. So, look, what do we do with this man? You certainly don't trade him in, that's for sure. But at the same time, I think if you are a current owner, he is a hold. I did watch him last week pretty closely up against the Lions, and he did find enough of the ball. The last couple of weeks, 99 and 97, he has found enough of the football. 30-plus touches in both those, 32 in round 13 and 31 against Brisbane. So it's the same old story with him. It's the fact that he's not using the ball overly well. If he can improve that efficiency, then he goes 100 plus every day of the week. So I'm hoping that he can get on track. Playing Adelaide this week, hopefully he can go big, but usually that's Clary's job, as we already mentioned before. Titch, just pass for me. Look, if you're really, really low on the wallet and you've got a little bit of hope, then go for it. But yeah, not someone I'd advocate trading in. Hobbs, I think, is really good cover. If you can manage to hold on to him, I would. Pretty poor game last week, but remember the few weeks before that, he's been fantastic. And Greg Clark, look, hopefully plays this week. I'm not sure that he does. I heard that he played really well on the waffle, but does he make his way back in? I really can't tell you. But yeah, don't really count on him as being consistent cover. Onto the midfielders, under 250k, only the 4 options here this week. Judson Clark, a quiet game from him when many owners needed him on field this week. Only the 26 points, so he's been given a decent run, been given a bit of an opportunity for the last 3, but I think that it may be time to find some form in the 2s again, so not sure if he plays this week. Connor McDonald, well, you can thank me for trading him out. Finally gets a decent score and his highest score of the season with a 67. Highest disposal count as well with 19. So if you still own him, he should be pretty decent cover for him here until the end of the year. Arioli, 65 on the weekend. Surely holds his spot over Judson Clark. Playing West Coast this week. Hopefully, this may be hoping for a lot, but hopefully he can sneak a little bag for us. Should be decent coverage from here until the end of the year as well. And Sam Butler hasn't scored over 50 in his first 6 games, only the 24 on the weekend, and yeah, not really sure he holds his spot. On to the rucks, and surprisingly, big boy Maxi at the top of the list could be back as early as next week, so if we hadn't known this, he may not have been a must trade out, and given this news, Jackson owners who thought they may be getting a month's worth of solo ruck may have had that deal cut in half, but he really stepped up last week, Jackson with a 120 plus, so mobile around the ground, but when Max is back, that average should certainly decrease. English, out again, but in my opinion, still a hold. Darcy Cameron, owners would be celebrating with recent scores, but at the same time nervous about the prospects of Grundy's return, because the day that happens becomes the day that his average is probably cut in half. Witsy, in my opinion, the safest bloke to select in the ruck line. Dominated all aspects of the game last week after a 68 the week before. Some coaches were a little bit nervous, particularly given the fact that his ownership really did increase when Gorm was out. But look, with Wits, you know what you're getting. Just a solid pick. He was a real bully last week against pretty much a ruckless Port Adelaide, and he also has a nice draw to end the year. So I think you can select Jared Witts with great confidence. And Nanki was huge for me this week. Dominated the last quarter. Bunch of contested possessions. Think it was 11 possessions in total in the final term. Was a brick wall, intercepting down the line. Really played a captain's game. It looks like Nick Nat may be back this week, which isn't great timing for me, but hopefully the big man can go big again. Goldie, here's a fine pick, taking up number 1 ruck role again. Last 2 months, he's gone 125, 142, 103, 88, 123, 98, 104, and 120, and also made around 100k over that period. So a really safe option that shouldn't let you down, and nice DPP swing as well. Rob has a much higher ceiling than Goldie, but at the same time a lower floor, so a more risk versus reward type option, but someone to look at. If I had to choose between the two, I'm more of a Goldie fan though. Shrek Darcy, nice 115 plus on the weekend, coming up against Port this week, so I'm hoping for big things. We saw what Witsy did with them last round. Look, if he can hit his ceiling, owners will be laughing. Should be a top 3 ruck from here, but I'd like to see him offer more around the ground. Rowan Marshall went bang with a 156, but what were his 2 previous scores? A 54 and a 55, so that's, yeah, an easy no from me. Jacko, we've already talked about. The big O, George's man, he was massive last week. I was actually at the game and he looked awesome. I couldn't believe that 23 disposals, 18 of which were contested, 3 tackles, 5 marks, and 1,000,000 clearances only netted him 99 points. It was possibly his low disposal efficiency, but I certainly think he deserved more. A lot of those clearances came directly from grabbing the ball out of the ruck. That was a bit of a common tactic that he used. Look, he pulled down a contested screamer, saved a point, which was pretty awesome to watch. No forward again this week, which is a big bonus. So, yeah, really passed the test for me. And if you're looking for a real pod type ruck, then O could be someone to look for. And Braden Pruce, I've just got the roller coaster there. Look, when I say roller coaster, that may be a little bit harsh in regard to his scoring from this year, because his only really low score was at 17. Obviously not great for owners and obviously due to injury. But look, relying on him from week to week is just going to be a really scary proposition. So if you can, I'd just get out of Dodgeville with Prusey. Onto the forwards, 500k plus, and we do have some nice options here. Look, to keep it short and simple, I'd pretty much recommend trading any of these blokes into your side. The only dicey sort of one, I suppose, in my opinion, again, is Jeremy Cameron. Look, when we talk about key forwards, he doesn't necessarily play that traditional key forward type role. Does still have a nice fixture coming up, but when I compare him to the other names, I'm just a little bit less confident with him. Cogs, I bought in a couple of weeks ago and have been really happy with that. Now 570,500. I think he's really put his hand up as certainly a top 8 forward from here until the end of the season. Himmelberg, I've got more confidence on. I've been more confident from week to week. I think the week prior, when we saw him in the ruck and also up forward for a small stint, was mainly due to the fact that Pruce was out. So last week, we saw him back to that more favourable role down back, with Whitfield back in the side, Cummings still playing. He's still there. So I haven't got too many concerns with Himmelberg moving forward. Got a really big ceiling. And again, I think that he could actually be a top 8 forward if he continues in this role. Bont, I've now got the must-have symbol on. His best game of the year scoring-wise last week, and an ideal time to trade him in. The week before went a 120 as well. So I think he's certainly over those shoulder issues. If he's not, doesn't seem to be affecting him too much. If you need to bring a forward in and you've got almost 600k, what's that, 587, I still think it's a bargain. Look no further than the Bond. I think he can actually hurt you if you don't own him. Libba, pretty similar to Cogs, 114 for a 3-round average. He's been really solid, had a fantastic game last week. Again, top 8 forward for mine. I think you can select him with great confidence. Bailey Smith will be coming back into the side soon. I don't know if it's going to affect Libba too much though. Cameron talked about not overly confident on him. Brody, I said that 5 wouldn't affect him too much, and that's exactly what we saw last week. He had a phenomenal game, 125 plus, and he's done this a few times for us this year. Look, when I first selected Brody at the start of the year, I thought if you can get an 80, that would be fantastic. Make a bit of coin, move him on, but what a luxury it's been just to be able to hold on to him. And we look at him now, he is an absolute keeper. So no issues with Will Brody. Really wrapped that I've got him in the sides. Luke Parker, I've got the forgive symbol on him there. Copped a little bit of a knock last week, but he's been super for me anyway during the last probably 6 weeks when I've had him in the side. 549,000, I still think is really good value. Don't let last week's score put you off. If you don't own him, yeah, bring him in with great confidence. And Josh Dunkley, don't really need to talk too much about this bloke. We've all got him. That 3-round average is actually under 3 figures, only a 97. So come on, Dunks, come home strong, son. On to the forwards, 250 to 500k. The man up the top, Toby Green, apart from his massive 156 versus the Dogs, hasn't really done much. 82, 84, and a 70 are his other scores in the last month. Isaac Rankin, I'd tell you what, for his role, he's been super consistent. Every score in the last 7 weeks has been between 88 and 102. So a high floor, low ceiling type player, but a decent sort of a budget option. Rosie, been a little bit up and down, but has gone 100 plus in the last 2 weeks. Does have a difficult upcoming fixture though, playing Freo, GWS, Melbourne and Geelong in the next 4. Gresh, an 84 last week after a lovely 125 the week before. Doesn't really interest me though. Duncan still hasn't displayed a consistent run of form. 117.90 and a 75 in the last 3 weeks. That just highlights his inconsistency this year. Don't be surprised though to see his output increase without Stewart. He's playing North this week, but it's a risk versus reward pick, and you are hoping for a little bit here. Isaac Heaney, well, finally got to the ton in round 14, but last week pooped out of 59, which is why I've got the roller coaster on him. You'll get the good, the bad, and the ugly with Heaney. Adam Chalor only gone above 100 twice in the last 2 months, so nothing really to see here. Butters, well, if you kept onto him last week, I suppose you're keeping onto him for another week, but my advice was to get rid of him last week. Jed Anderson doesn't really interest me there. 3-round average of 81. Had a really nice game. Was it 3-4 weeks ago? But again, hasn't really done much after that. The package, a 98 and a 101 in the last couple of weeks, does have some people interested. He did end 2021 really well, and if he could replicate that form for the next 8 weeks, then he could be a mini saviour for those who are a little bit broke and need an F6, or for those that are even looking for a luxury F7, M9 swing, if you can afford to do so. And look, Timmy Taranto, only the 56 points on the weekend, a really talented player, but too risky at this stage. Just keep a watch on him, and if you're looking for an upgrade in a couple of weeks and he hits form, go for it then. And we'll finish with the forwards under 250k. The bloke up the top, he did feature in the stock market video for the first time all year last week, and I actually know someone that jumped on, so congratulations, Tomo. Awesome selection for the week, mate, for the week. Did go 100 plus, 238,500 with a negative break even of 30. Look, what happens with him moving forward, I don't know, but I suppose that he's better than a couple of the other rookies that we may have on our bench at the moment. We certainly don't look to invest, I don't think, this week. It was a bit of a lucky one, I think, the week before. Rep Bazzo, defensive forward, giving us a 40 and a 37. Average 9 touches, 6 marks, and a couple of tackles over the last 2 weeks. Could be a nice swing if you've still got a Paddy McCartan or an SDK down back, but don't expect a huge average. At this stage of the year, though, if he's playing and he provides a swing, he could be a good trading target, sorry. And Jesse Motlop, no at 150k. Last 4 scores read 34, 40, 36, and 36. So that's it from me for now, guys. All the best of luck for your trade-ins and your trade-outs, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.